And Loser, a song that I suddenly had the desire to play Monday morning last week, post-BAFTAs. A lot of people felt that the old lady from Royal Family had it in the bag. And maybe I was the obvious follow-up to her if, she couldn't make it up the steps for any reason. And no, wasn't to be. Was not to be. Don't want to dwell on it. If you saw it, you saw what happened. If you didn't, it's old news. Let it go, alright? The real winner was television. Okay, and
it was.
Wasn't it Jim Broadbent?
And also Jim Broadbent and Ricky Gervais. But yeah, no, it was fine, and I happy to move on from that. Don't worry. It was slightly frustrating when I had to give a press conference. I had to go down and do the press conference. I had to go down and do the press conference on behalf of Ricky, who'd won the award but was in America, and that was very strange. Well, what would Ricky say? I'm sure he'd be very pleased. Right, and are you annoyed? No, I'm not annoyed. No, I'm just annoyed now that I'm down here talking to you people when I could be upstairs, watching the hilarious show.
Did they ask you to do the dance?
Naturally, I obliged, because he would have.
Yeah.
But it was all very strange. At one point, I had to have my picture taken with Joan Rivers, who'd given the award, but I didn't have the award because obviously I hadn't won the award. So I was just stood there having my photo taken. All the winners and me.
I saw that picture. You were just looking really quizzical and amused by the whole thing.
Just really kind of baffled. I really found the whole thing incredibly strange. No one had actually told me I was going to have to go up there and talk, and
because the odds on Gervais must have been huge. Everyone thought it was either you or the old dear.
The old dear. But yes, there we are. It's extras. The TV show Extras is one. Really, I'm just pleased the show has got something. No, I am.
No, quite right.
With me, of course, in the studio, it's Harry. He works in a bank, and he's a music fan. He's an old friend of mine.
Hello, good afternoon.
And Rufus, who's also a friend of mine, but unlike Harry, super posh, incredibly posh, well-educated. Chiseled features, floppy of fringe, and I can see their little hairy of chest just peeking above the t-shirt. Thank you very much. And what's the most interesting thing that's happened to you, Rufus, this week?
Well, Steve, as you know, whenever I go out socially nowadays, it's purely to harvest new music and to talk to young people about what sort of music they're listening to
and what their ringtones are.
That sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. And sharing them on a Bluetooth.
Right,
facility.
exactly. Yeah.
Last night I was enjoying some drinks with some friends in London's glittering West End, and a girl who was quite heavily refreshed started talking to me and my friends. First of all, because her hair extensions had fallen out and she needed help getting them shoved back in.
Right.
And then she said, I won't do the voice because I'll probably lose a few listeners in the area of the country that she came from.
Yeah.
But she said, I want to go out clubbing. Where do you suggest? And I said, you've come to the right man. Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
What sort of music do you like? And she said, Eagles. The Eagles. And she was out celebrating her 22nd birthday, and I thought she'd say a few bands that I hadn't heard of, but I'd get pen and paper out, write them all down, and then we'd discuss them and play them on the show. Yeah. Instead she said the Eagles. I said, anyone else? The Trogs and the Animals.
The Trogs?
Yeah.
Well, really beyond Wild Thing, yeah. I'm not sure what she's expecting to hear.
Exactly.
No.
So, and it's interesting because
we know you are an Eagles fan, of course, because we heard the old cassette of you as a young kid asking for an illegal bootleg copy of Hotel California. Exactly. Outrageous, but you were young, we forgive you.
That's right. So we kind of, we became friends on that, and then she kicked off. She, as I said, she'd had a couple of drinks. She said, "I tell you what, though, Jimi Hendrix." He's overrated a bit, isn't he? And I thought, well, I suppose. He said that song, All Along the Watchtower, he didn't even write it. Dylan wrote it. I said, yeah. She went, Dylan doesn't get enough credit for that. Doesn't get the credit. And I thought, well, we can talk about this if you like, and we can talk about Dylan not getting much credit for stuff. Yeah. But we won't be talking long, will we?
Did she know that you were on the radio? Is that the reason she started talking to you?
No, she had no idea, and I never told her. But she did ask me if I was in some Shakespeare play or something. Right. Just from my appearance, just thought it was a bit strange.
That was presumably because it's Saturday night, you were wearing a ruff.
Yeah, exactly.
And a floppy hat.
Dublin nose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so did you ever find anywhere for her to go and dance?
We told her to go to either Fabric or, well, I thought the Zoo, we were in Leicester Square and I thought the Zoo Bar might be quite good. But I think the last thing we saw was her trying to get to the Zoo Bar without using a taxi or a tubes, even though the tube had shut, and that was the point where I just just extricated myself from the conversation and walked home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, good luck to her. We don't know what her name was, but maybe she's listening.
It was Donna.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, her friends
Okay.
calling her name Donna. Yeah, so, hello, Donna, if you're listening, but she won't be.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've been able to help.
Yeah, so was I in a way.
Very sweet of you.
Yeah.
Harry, what have you been up to this week? What's the most interesting thing?
Yeah, it's been an odd week, Steve. Wednesday, I had to go to a big conference with a lot of city gent types, which is
Other bankers?
Yeah, it was painfully dull. But in the evening, mirroring my corporate stroke rock lifestyle, I went to see Modest Mouse at the Albert Hall.
Oh, yeah?
It was surprisingly dull as
Was
well.
it?
Even with Johnny Marr playing guitar, it was awful. But then Thursday, I literally had the worst day of my life. Work was terrible, absolutely awful. I left my train pass on the train on the way home. So I had to walk home after I got off at my station, which was rubbish. And then I got the third major scar on my body. I've only ever had 2 big scars before. This third one, it's another scar coming from cutting bread. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I'm cutting.
You've got a number of major bread-related scars, haven't
I've got 2. I'm Rufus. You can see there's that one there.
Oh, yeah.
That was a bread cut injury. There's this one here. The other major scar I've got was from doing the washing up.
Wow.
Oh,
I had quite a long glass, and I put my hand in with a tea towel to
Textbook
try
mistake.
it,
Textbook
and it just
mistake.
exploded into my hand.
Sure.
So that was a bad day, but it's all got better. I'm here now.
Thanks for showing Rufus the scars. That was a dynamite bit of radio.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
just don't want people to think I'm just making this up.
Well, let's get a photo of those, put them on the website.
That'd be amazing.
Good.
From 1982, post-punk new wavers Modern English, a track called I Melt With You, which actually featured in a film in the States called Valley Girl, an old Nick Cage film, and so it's actually much more well-known over there than it is here. I often like digging out little tracks which have got perhaps a big following in the States, but not so much over here. I'm educating as much as I can. There was a mention yesterday, Harry, as I recall, in the Guardian Guide. They did a little review or
Yeah, that's true.
plug for the show, which but I seem to remember I don't know, it annoyed me slightly, marginally.
Well, let's find out why it did.
Thank you.
The comment is, Stephen Merchant brings his pub banter to the radio.
Fair enough.
Mostly successfully.
What's that mean? Mostly successfully. But the problem with that is, surely you need to know what my pub banter is like to know if I've transferred it successfully or otherwise
True.
to the show.
True.
I mean, the truth is, he's right. In the pub, I'm far more entertaining and charming.
Yeah.
You know,
But
and
how does he know that?
he doesn't know that. He's got no idea.
Well, maybe he does. And you play a welcomely eclectic mix of new releases and
True.
favourites from your own record collection,
Yes.
which appears to be dominated by late 1980s indie/student disco classics.
That is true. Although, again, I would say that does the show a little of a disservice because I think we've played an awful lot of different kinds of music. haven't we?
Yeah.
Talking of music, guys, one thing we've not had on the show:
Yeah.
live music.
Yeah, I've heard their trouble, though, musicians.
I'm sure that's true, and I know they're a bit rock and roll. Not something I feel naturally able to get involved with. Like we've said in the past, I don't feel naturally inclined to be someone who could keep up with the rock and roll lifestyle. I like to be in bed by 11 if possible. And I've always said before, I always think that if I was in a hotel room, someone said throw the TV out the window, I'd be too worried about bending at the knees so as not to hurt your back. Come on, guys, be careful.
That's the thing, they have little signs in the hotel rooms, you know, what you should do in the event of a fire. They don't have one for the proper lifting position.
Exactly, it's
Throwing
like a
the TV out the window.
TV. Exactly, it's sloppy. But yes, live music on today's show. No, well, I was hoping you'd perhaps be a touch more excited, but I'll mention who it is and when they're coming up and stuff after we've heard some more music. I was going to ask you something, Harry, and I can't remember what it was.
You were going to mention the fact that people get in touch on the text on 64046 or email the show at stephen.sixmusic@bbc.co.uk, just like an old university colleague of yours.
Oh, really?
Who has only just realised that he went to university with you, having seen you all over the media for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says that Denise the cleaner will be very proud of you.
Denise the cleaner.
Do you remember Denise?
I remember when I first turned up, we were in halls of residence, first few weeks. You know how you like to make an impression, you feel that, you know, you've left behind your school chums, it's a kind of blank slate here, you can re-establish yourself as a new person, super cool, Fonzie-like cool,
Yeah.
you know, for you know, to help meet women or whatever the reason is, it's a reinvention. Within about 2 weeks, the cleaner used to clean our rooms, and I came back down the corridor once, and there was a bunch of people, including possibly him, looking into my open door in my little room in a hall of residence, and I sort of wandered down, looked over I'm there at the back of the crowd, peering into my own room. Denise the cleaner, bear in mind, 2 weeks, she's got my size 14 Doc Martens on, and she's like clomping around my room, going, "Ooh, look at me! I'm the tall bloke. I'm Steve." And everyone's laughing in hysterics.
You're
Unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Kidding.
I was being mocked mocked by the cleaning lady, you know, and everyone in hysterics. And it's that thing again, how can you re-establish yourself, you know, with a new brand, super cool, super hip,
But you think
when
that
you've got
poor,
cleaners mocking you mercilessly behind your back?
think of the poor cleaner. She's got to do that every year. She gets a new influx of, you know, fresh-faced things, thinking they're all that, especially the place you went, not like the common or garden place I went. And so she's got to impose her personality on them. So you're an easy target.
Well, clearly, I like to feel that I've finally, you know, rubbed something back in her face.
Yeah.
With all, I would like to say I would by winning a BAFTA. It didn't happen. Didn't happen. Each week, of course, I've been adding a track to my Steve Show Songs to Seduce Women by CD. And, you know, that's an ongoing enterprise, but I'm conscious that I may have upset a lot of people because, of course, there's not necessarily people out there who are falling in love. Maybe a lot of people who've just had their hearts broken, you know, and I've been very insensitive to them. So I thought, you know, I should be offering solace of one form or another on a Sunday afternoon. And so I've decided to work on a new compilation, the Steve Show Songs to Nurse a Broken Heart by. Beautiful. And so I thought I'd start with this one, Stevie Wonder at his most lovelorn. From the album Where I'm Coming From, which was Stevie Wonder's first sort of mature, heartfelt, socially conscious album, recorded, of course, when he was only 20. Oh, it makes you sick. That's I Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer. Steve Show, BBC Six Music, with me, Stephen Merchant, in the studio as well, Harry and Rufus, who is super posh. Now, I've always thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to win a Grammy? It's very difficult to win a Grammy, of course, because I am not a musician. I do not have any musical ability whatsoever, although, of course, there is one way, if you do not have any musical ability, of winning a Grammy, which is liner notes. A Grammy for liner notes. They do actually give it, I don't know if they still do, they for many years gave a Grammy for liner notes, the blurb that they write in records, in packaging as well.
Best packaging.
Right, and I thought the only way I can ever get to write some liner notes is if the Steve Show starts having live music sessions, a la John Peel and the like. One day we can build up a vast archive of Steve Show sessions, put it out, I can write a wonderfully evocative, poetic, you know, tribute to all the bands that have played and so on. And so today we are starting with some live music in the studio later. What time is it happening, Jude?
Just after 4.
Just after 4 o'clock here, playing live for us, playing tracks from their new album. It's Aqualung. Little round of applause for Aqualung. They didn't have to come in, and they have, which is very, very sweet of them indeed. So, yes, live music from them later. If you're a fan, if you're not, then stay tuned, and they will win you over. Each week, of course, my guests here in the studio choose music. They introduce me to songs, and first up, Rufus, you are playing a song of your choice for me.
I am, Steve. I'm playing a song by a band called the 45s.
Oh, yes.
Who some listeners might remember as an earlier incarnation of Aqualung, the band we are.
It's as though it's not just thrown together.
It's as if it's planned, isn't it? This is a song I can't remember how old it is. Jude, you're a fan of the 45s as well, about 7-8 years ago, something like that. They were called Ruth before they were called the 45s. This might embarrass Aqualung, who are currently setting up in the hub, but this is their track, Got to Tell Her.
Steve Show, BBC Six Music. That's the choice of Rufus, one of my guests here in the studio. Rufus, fill us in.
What about the song? Or?
Well, yeah, you've already told us, but people may have just joined us halfway through.
Yeah,
please remind us what the track was.
That was 45's, a track called Got to Tell Her, then transmorphed and transmogrified into Aqualung, who are currently setting up next door.
They'll be playing live later on the Steve Show. Emails, texts, they're coming in 64046. Some people responding, of course, to my heartbreaking story about when a cleaning lady mocked me mercilessly. Jude's just dying over there. Can you be quiet, Jude? We're just trying to talk about me.
I've got a story, an email here from Tina Bergerus, who was emailed in from Sweden. Excuse my pronunciation, Tina, of your name. And she says you're my biggest idol, Steve, to you, which is nice. She's of course, naturally. She says you guys were talking about a cleaner who made fun of you. I thought I'd share a little story about almost the same thing. Me and my friend Veronica were on the bus talking about soccer or something. I don't really like soccer, so I don't know why we talked about it. Then all of a sudden I hear someone behind me repeating every word I say. So I turn around to see an old man impersonating me. He even made my voice.
Wow.
And I'm guessing from her slight grammatical error there, she might be Swedish and have a Swedish accent. So I'm suddenly imagining she's speaking with a slight Swedish accent. He even made my voice. So I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "What are you doing?" So I turned back to Veronica, and she was just as surprised as me. We sat quietly for the rest of the trip, and when we got off the bus, the old man said, "Suckers!" To this day, I don't know what the hell he was doing.
64046, Stephen.6music@bbc.co.uk. If you've been mocked by old people, that's a whole new strand that